may sound obvious, but if you want to learn to speak Spanish well, you have actually got to practice speaking it. Inputting the language, it's true, it's essential because otherwise, what are you going to output? However, input alone is not enough to make you a fluent and confident speaker. In fact, active speaking practice has been shown to boost language retention by up to 80%. Wow. So it's the key to end this vicious cycle of learning and forgetting. But do you always have to practice with another person? What if there's no one else around? Is there any benefit to practicing on your own? In this video, I'm going to share my exact technique that I used a ton when I was learning Spanish and that I still use to this day. It will accelerate your fluency and confidence. And the best part, you can incorporate it into your own self-study routine with no one else around on your own terms. How convenient is that? Comencemos, amigos. Hola mis queridos líderes del lenguaje, bienvenidos a otro video. Yo me llamo Erica Ray. Aquí en este canal te enseño las estrategias que me ayudaron a aprender español desde cero y que han ayudado a miles de mis estudiantes a acelerar su propio camino hacia la fluidez. Además, encontrarás videos para tu práctica auditiva con historias y conversaciones auténticas. Si eso te parece interesante, pues, ¿qué esperas? Suscríbete para no perderte nada. Monologues. Monologues are incredible learning tools for so many reasons. They don't require anyone else to be there with you to practice, giving you complete flexibility because you can fit language learning into a busy schedule. They also boost your confidence by providing you with a safe space to practice speaking without immediate correction. Sometimes you just need a little bit of space to practice, even if it's not perfect. Practicing your monologue is also greatly going to help you with your pronunciation and intonation, and they also help you with your overall communication and storytelling abilities because you're going to choose topics that are either highly relevant or highly interesting to you. Through monologues, you get to tell your own story in Spanish, which is super exciting. Monologues are also the perfect way to implement what I call my prepare, practice, present method for language learning, which I'm going to walk you through today. But if you would like the complete A to Z guide of how to incorporate this method seamlessly into the rest of your routine so that everything is very balanced and cohesive, then do register for my free workshop, the Next 90 Days Spanish Workshop. You can find that at ericaraylanguage.com/90 days or by clicking the link below this video. Something that I would do even before I had a lot of vocabulary and before I could speak Spanish very well was to prepare certain topics to present in monologue form. Sometimes these were mini presentations that I would literally deliver in public that I had researched and learned about. And sometimes they were part of my own personal story that I would prepare to be able to easily share that with Spanish speakers when it came up in conversation. Because Spanish speakers would inevitably ask me, where are you from? And they find out I'm not a native Spanish speaker, so how are you learning? Why are you learning? What are you doing? So all of that, who I am, just kind of that story. So in your case, it could be something similar, or it could also be as simple as just choosing a topic that's interesting to you and preparing it in the same way that you would have prepared to give a presentation back when you were in school, right? It's crazy how many presentations I remember from elementary school, right? But it's just that we worked on that. We researched it, we prepared it, and not only worked to learn it, but also to teach it because we had to present it, which in turn made us learn it better. I remember learning a lot better from those activities than just reading something out of a textbook and knowing that I was going to be tested on it, so I just had to remember it temporarily. So choose a topic that is either relevant to you, like the examples that I gave you of my personal story, or just interesting to you, something you just want to talk about, your opinion on a current event or a hobby that you have. It could be anything that you want. Now, if you're a beginner, upper beginner, keep your presentation short and sweet. You do not need to prepare something where you're going to need to talk for 10 minutes. That's just too much. It's just not reasonable. It could be something as simple as preparing to answer that question, why are you learning Spanish? That's going to be so much less overwhelming and more effective. Drop me a comment below. What monologue topic would you like to prepare, practice, and present? I would love to see your ideas. All right, let's lay out those steps. Prepare, practice, present. Now, there are a few different ways to do this. I'm going to outline the ways that are most popular among the students in our program. And keep in mind that this first step, the preparation step, is the one place where it is really helpful to have feedback from another person. Now, this doesn't have to be a live interaction, so it doesn't have to interrupt the flow of your self-study. It could be something that you sent off for review to your teacher, to your fluent Spanish-speaking friend. And then once you have this polished version of your script, then you can practice and present it all on your own. So if you're at that beginner or upper beginner stage, the first step is to get help scripting out your monologue. Remember, if you're at this stage, it's going to be short, but this step ensures that your content is accurate and grammatically correct for the most part. If you're not working with an actual teacher, if you sent it off to maybe your native speaking, Spanish speaking friend, it's still going to be better than likely what you could have put together on your own. It may not be perfect. None of us speak perfectly in our native languages, but again, it's going to be better than what you could have put together on your own. Now, you could go so far as to completely write this out in English and have that person translate it. Again, remember, it's going to be short. If you are a beginner, upper beginner, you can express your ideas. Or you could work with the person in a live setting, especially if it's a teacher that you're working with, that you work with anyway. You may as well go ahead and hop on live with that person so that you can really express what you're trying to convey, and they can help you express that same idea in Spanish. Your helper could even record themselves reading your script for you so that you have not only the text but the audio. That's what we do for our students. Now your script is finished, so learn key vocabulary, that vocabulary that is really important to the main ideas of your script or vocabulary that you're unfamiliar with. In this video, we talked about starting with a context and then extracting new vocabulary from there instead of starting with random vocabulary words and trying to give each one a context. This is a perfect opportunity to do that. In a similar way, learn new sentence structure. You know what your script says because at the very least you created it. At the very least, you created it in English first, and probably you participated in the Spanish as well. So you know what it says. So pay attention to how your thoughts are expressed in Spanish. Look at that sentence structure. Notice things that are new to you that you wouldn't have expected the sentence to be put together in that way. Now that you're working with a complete, correct script, it's going to be a little easier to add things, to make the changes that you want to make. And then if you want to send those off for feedback as well, be my guest. Now, if you're a more intermediate or advanced learner, this is what you're gonna do. Write the first version of your monologue yourself. Research unfamiliar vocabulary words, look up unfamiliar sentence structure that you're needing. You can use simple free tools to do this, like SpanishDict.com and WordReference.com, for example. Then you're going to get feedback, so send that draft to your teacher or the person who's helping you. Just make sure it's someone who's going to be thorough and won't just say, yeah, looks great. This ensures that you end up with the correct or mostly correct script to work with. Another technique for more advanced speakers is to bullet point, okay? Just use bullet points to jot down your ideas if you feel like that is enough to jog your memory and be able to speak freely on that topic. And then you can save that getting feedback part for the last step when you go to present. So you have several options. It depends on your comfort level and your level of Spanish. We're about to go into the next step, practice. But before we do, if you're getting value out of this video, why not give me a like to let me know and to let YouTube know, hey, we should probably show this to more people. Now it's time to practice your monologue. So listen first, if you have the audio to go with it, like we talked about that being an option, and read it out loud several times, focusing on your intonation, on your pronunciation. And this is also going to help you get really familiar with the words and the sentence structure so that you can present this without having to read it, which we'll talk about in a little bit. You can practice in front of a mirror if that helps to add a little bit of healthy pressure to you. You can absolutely do that. If there are certain words or phrases that you're having trouble remembering, maybe it's the way that certain sentences are put together and you're not familiar with that sentence structure, or there's just certain words within there that just keep escaping your memory, you can go ahead and isolate them at this point. Maybe make a list over here separately in your notebook of those words and phrases that are giving you particular trouble. You can practice them straight from the notebook. You can create flashcards with them if you would like, putting that phrase in Spanish and then the English translation on the back, and then testing yourself going from English to Spanish. This is a top-down approach, because we are starting with this big context, this thing that you have that you're going to present, and then you're finding the difficult parts, and then you're isolating them and working on those specifically. You can drill yourself on those, do some exercises with those. This is very different from like a bottom-up approach that most people do, where they're just learning some Spanish here and there, a little bit here, a little bit there, hoping that one day it all comes together and they're able to present something that is coherent, and nice. We're taking it the opposite way because it's faster. It's kind of like starting at the top of a mountain and rolling down it, which is just so much less friction than starting at the bottom and climbing up. And then also, as we talked about in this video, you're going to be able to retain that new vocabulary and new sentence structure so much better because it came from a real personal context and you have a goal right in front of you. There is a reason why you are learning these words. Now it's time to present your monologue. So by presenting it, I don't mean reading it, because you already did that in the practice stage if you were working with a complete script. When you present, you need to present with few or no notes. How are you going to do that? If your presentation is really short, if you're quite a beginner, you may have it memorized by now just because of all that work that you did to practice it. I still have things in my head memorized from decades ago just because I practiced it so many times. And for that reason, the sentence structure that was within those short presentations would just come out naturally when I was talking about other subjects as well. So that's super cool. But if you are working with a longer script, obviously you can't just memorize it. That's just not the point. So you're going to need to work with bullet points. Now, if earlier in an earlier step you already started with bullet points, you already have that ready. But if you have a complete script that you wanted to start with so that you could make sure it was accurate, so that you had material that you could work with in your self-study, learning new vocabulary, learning new grammar, you can now take that and turn it in to a much simpler document, which just has your bullet points. And because of all of that work that you did in that practice stage, those bullet points will probably be enough to jog your memory sufficiently to be able to talk well about each of those subcategories. Who are you going to present to? Well, remember, a big advantage of the monologue method is that you don't need to present it to anyone. You can present it to yourself. You can do this yourself. But what I really recommend is recording yourself. Record yourself delivering your monologue. It's going to be so helpful for seeing your progress and also for the review step, which we're going to talk about later. After you record it, if you wanted to send it in to someone for feedback, you could absolutely do that, but you don't have to. You're going to be able to do some self-analysis, which I'll show you in just a moment. Some learners even go as far as documenting their journey online for some added accountability. There are channels here on YouTube where the learners are documenting their Spanish journey. That's super cool to see, right? Added accountability, and you are presenting to the public, but you can do so at any time so it doesn't affect your flow. Now, if you prefer to take that preparation of your monologue and present it to a person, just because that's your preference, you don't want to record yourself, you don't want to talk to a camera, then of course you could absolutely present this monologue to someone, to your teacher, to your friend, to your language exchange partner. Record at least the audio, at least from your phone, so that you can hear yourself and go back later. And of course, another way to present is, for example, if you had prepared to answer a common question that comes up, like, why are you learning Spanish? Well, when those opportunities present themselves, that's your opportunity to present. But we're not in complete control of when that's going to happen. That's why our first few options put you in the driver's seat and give you more control to practice more. And guys, if you hear nothing else from me from this video, please hear this. You have got to ditch your desire to be perfect in the presentation. You could have very well started out with a perfect script. That is actually the goal, so that you're working with a very accurate piece of material and so that you're practicing with very accurate pieces of material that are relevant to you. But when it comes time to present, it's not going to be perfect because you're not reading it. You're going to be going by what you've actually learned and absorbed, what you can recall, right? You're going to make mistakes. You're going to stumble. You're going to forget certain parts completely. It's okay. All of that preparation and practice that you did got you 75% more prepared than you would have been for this presentation than if you just were winging it starting from zero. You would have learned so much more from this process than if you were just walking into a situation with no preparation. You're going to retain so much more thanks to these prepare and practice steps that you've done before the presentation, but it's still not going to be perfect. And this is why scripting is not cheating, because you're still going to have to take that into spontaneous presentation or into spontaneous conversation, if that's what you scripted your monologue for. But the advantage is that if you recorded yourself, if you decided to do that, of course you don't have to, but if you decided to record yourself, whether in video or audio, you get to do a final bonus step: review, refine, and repeat. Watch your session back or listen to your presentation back and notice errors, right? Since you practiced with your script that was correct, you're going to notice when you make some mistakes. Try to correct that for the next time. You're going to remember what you wanted to say at this part, but you just didn't have the words. So when you do it again, try to fill that part in. You're going to notice where maybe you got the words right, but you were just like really hesitant. Like maybe that part was just memorized and you just weren't comfortable. Practice that more. Practice that more before you do it again, okay? You can do so much on your own. Don't underestimate what you can do on your own. You don't always have to have another person there. You can do this self-analysis, learn to self-correct, and then try it again. If you have the desire and the time to do it at least one more time and try to correct some of those errors, it's gonna be better. You're gonna be really happy. You're going to immediately see that there was a jump in improvement, and you can do this as many times as you want. Some learners get a high over doing this several times and just seeing how they improve every single time, and their retention just improves every single time. Some learners get bored after a couple of times of doing it and they're ready to move on to another subject. Either way, it's okay, because what you're going to notice is that when you do move on to another subject, when you create a different monologue and go through the same process again, it's going to be easier. You're going to have more vocabulary, you're going to understand more sentence structure, and it's just this snowball effect where what you learned last time is carrying over into this, and then what you learned from the past 2 times is carrying over into monologue number 3, and then eventually you can talk about whatever you want. You don't need a script anymore. It's a beautiful process. Been there, done that, it'll work for you too. So you have seen that monologues are a fantastic way to put the prepare, practice, present method into action. There are a few other things that you can do to completely round out your study plan so that you have all of the elements that you need to progress to fluency efficiently and in the most enjoyable way possible. So I'll tell you all about that in my free workshop. Again, you can find that at ericareelanguage.com/90 days. Register for free so that you can plan out your next 3 months of Spanish learning and notice the incredible difference that just 3 months can make with your Spanish. I'll see you at the workshop after you register. You can check out this video next. Hasta la próxima, amigos.